Hey y'all, it's Monday. It's time to get back into our notes. This week we're going to be looking at the 13 original colonies, the English colonies that were set up that would eventually become what we know of today as the United States. So before we get going on that, I'm going to have you, if you go into the August 31st New England Notes video, which is what you're watching right now, before you click on the video, you should have noticed that it said copy and paste the notes below onto a new slide into your digital notebooks. If you're actually doing one of the physical notebooks, then you'll just simply copy this information down by hand, write it into your notebook, and you'll be good to go. So I'm going to show you real quickly how to put this into your digital notebook and save you a little work. So come down here to where the notes are, and we are simply going to double click and highlight all this, and I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to open up my digital notebook, and we're going to come over here to our last slide that we did, which was colonization, Jamestown and Plymouth, and I'm going to click here in between slide 6 and 7. And I'm going to come up here and get a new slide, and I'm just going to put in a blank piece of paper. All right, so here we go. Here's our blank piece of paper. I'm going to come over here now, and I'm going to paste it in, and I'm going to choose this first option that says Use Destination Theme. I'm going to click that. Okay, there it is. So now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to drag it up to the top of the page here and kind of center it. Now it's really tiny. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come up here and we're going to try to get inside this box, and we're going to, well, I missed that top line. So we're just going to highlight all of it, and let's blow it up to, not that big. Let's blow it up to 32. Okay, that looks good. Now, you'll notice that there are some blanks here. If you just click in the blank and start typing, it's not going to get rid of the blank. You're just going to start filling in letters and whatnot. And we don't want that blank to stay there. So we're going to get rid of this. So when I tell you to come type something in your notes, for example, I'll go ahead and tell you. This first one is going to be rocky soil. So we just highlight that, and as soon as I started typing rocky soil, the blank went away and the letters I typed in its place replaced it. And so now it says rocky soil and cold temperatures force settlers to have small farms. Okay? So that's how you're going to fill in the rest of these blanks. Just double tap them. Once it's highlighted, start typing in the answer that goes in that blank, and the blank will go away and the words that you type in there will take its place. Okay? So we've got our new slide in here. You've still got some blanks left. I did the first blank for you, rocky soil. So now, let's get started on your actual notes. So, here we go. So right here is a map of the 13 original colonies. And you'll notice that the 13 colonies are actually broken up into 3 different regions, okay? Today, we are simply concentrating on the New England colonies. These guys right here. And in just a second, I'll move this screen out of your way so you can see the map a little better. So the New England colonies, there are 4 of them, okay? Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Middle colonies, you've got 4 there, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And then the southern colonies, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Those were the original 13. Now, something to notice about these labels here. You'll notice there's some crosses on some of them. Down here, there's some dollar signs on some of them. That kind of tells you why these colonies were established, okay? If it has a cross, that's pretty obvious. It was founded for religious reasons. If it has a money sign on it, that means it was created for the reason of trying to make money, all right, profit. Now, you'll also notice that some of them don't have a symbol by them, and those are basically, those were colonies that were given to certain people or allowed, certain people were allowed to establish those colonies for their own particular reasons that really doesn't fall under religious or profit. And we'll get to those guys later. But like we said, for today, we are simply concerned with, I'm going to move myself out of the way here. We're simply concerned with the New England colonies, these right up here. Now, you may ask yourself, why do we call these Southern, Middle, and New England? Why don't we call it Southern, Middle, and Northern? Well, pretty much for the fact that's just what they called this region when they came over here. You're going to notice we weren't very creative in what we named our colonies. New England, New York, New Jersey, a lot of news all over the place. We just took the name of where we came from or a place back in England and we put a new in front of it. So you see over here, these are the New England colonies. Rhode Island, tiny, smallest state that we have. Connecticut's down here, Massachusetts right here, and Rhode Island or New Hampshire right up here above Massachusetts. You'll notice this big yellow dot, that is Plymouth. All right, we talked about that the other day. That's where the Pilgrims actually wound up. We said the Pilgrims were actually supposed to be down here by this yellow dot where Jamestown is in Virginia, but when they got blown off course, they wound up way further north and they set up Plymouth Plantation here in Massachusetts. So these are the four that we're going to be looking at today. So let's go to our next slide. A harbor, okay? Why did we settle in some of the areas we settled? Well, harbors were very important to people who were trying to set up new colonies, okay? And if you don't know what a harbor is basically where the land hugs the ocean and creates a protective barrier. So if you look on the picture right here, notice that the land appears to be hugging, all right, like we're hugging one of our friends. It's wrapping its arms around this little body of water here. And it's basically creating a protective barrier. Now, stuff can still come through here, but the waves are going to be smaller. The tide is going to be not as aggressive. If we have big storms come through, it's going to provide protection for this area right here. And what we would do in these type of areas is we would set up business. All right, a lot of shipping, a lot of fishing. Those are basically the main two, fishing and shipping. If we had natural resources or we had goods that we wanted to ship out of here back to Europe, we would use these harbors to do that shipping. And also this provides us a safe place to fish as well. All right, so let's look at the New England colonies. The first thing that goes in your notes, and we already did this together a while ago, is up here in New England, they do not have a climate that is very good for farming. They have a lot of rocky soil, okay? They have a lot of long, cold winters, cold weather, cold temperatures. And basically, the only farming that you're going to be doing up in this area would be smaller type farms. Maybe a farm big enough to raise food for a family or maybe a couple of families, but you're not going to have the huge plantations that you're going to have as you travel further south and where the soil is better and where the weather is warmer, okay? So in your notes, type in rocky soil, cold temperatures force the settlers to have small farms. Also, like we just mentioned on the previous slide, if they weren't farming to take care of their families, another one of the main activities was they fished for a living, okay? They could go out and fish and get enough fish for themselves. They could get enough fish to sell to the other people who were living around them. And they figured out pretty quickly they could take this fish and pack it in salt, okay? Salt prevents meat from going bad. And so they would take the fish and pack it in salt, and then they would ship it back across to Europe, and they had a market over there. Another thing that they did in this particular area was they became ship builders. Okay, when the first settlers came to the New World, there were tons of untouched forest. Trees, lumber was plentiful to be had. Okay, so that's what goes in your next blank there is lumber. They would take this lumber, they would cut it down, they would use it to build ships, they would use it to build their homes, to build their furniture. And a lot of times what they would also do is they would take this raw lumber, this wood, and they would ship it back to England. And the people back in England would make finished products out of it, like furniture and stuff like that. So, fished and lumber go in your notes. And then lastly, down here, it's also important to point out down here, you'll see this, the settlers in this region also participated in what was known as the triangular trade, also known as triangular trade routes. And if you look down here, you see a bunch of triangles, okay? They overlap and they go to different places, but they form triangles, and that's where we get the name from. And the triangles typically went from America to Europe to Africa, back to America, okay? And if this picture was a little bit bigger, you could actually see the products that are going. One of the big things, one of the big product, or one of the, let me slow this down. One of the more popular and more profitable triangular trade routes here was we would take raw goods, okay, we would take lumber, we would take different crops that we could grow over here in America, we would send it to Europe. Europe would then take that stuff and make things out of it and send it down here to Africa. In Africa, one of the things that we wound up trading for here were slaves. And then slaves were shipped back to the Americas to work on plantations and to work on farms and various things. And then it became basically one vicious cycle. We would send goods here, Europe would come down here and trade those goods for slaves. Slaves would be used in the Americas to produce more goods. And we, like it says, triangular trade route, it became a vicious cycle for those people who were being basically kidnapped and sold from their homes in Africa and sent here to the Americas. Now, we'll get into that quite a bit later as we get closer to the Civil War and whatnot, but that's that. All right. Now, people, important people that were in the New England colonies, and I'm going to try to speed this up because I want to keep my video under 15 minutes. So the first couple people we're going to look at right here. Roger Williams, that goes in your first blank, and Hutchinson in your second blank. They left Massachusetts, left as being nice. They were kicked out of Massachusetts. The people in Massachusetts came for religious freedom, but they didn't want anyone in their colony that didn't worship, participate in religion the way they did, so they kicked Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson out. And those two people wound up going and creating what is known as Rhode Island, okay? Right here, Rhode Island, that goes in the blank as well. And they based the entire settlement of Rhode Island on the idea of religious tolerance. As long as you claimed to worship the one true God, they didn't care how you did it. You were basically going to be welcomed in their colony. So they left Massachusetts and established Rhode Island. And then another guy, real quickly, let's hit this guy, Thomas Hooker. He was also in Massachusetts at one time, didn't like the way things were going there. So he actually left on his own, and he created the colony of Connecticut, okay? And the important thing that you need to know about Connecticut, okay, that goes in, Hooker's in the first blank, Connecticut's in the second. What you need to know is he set up his government based on a document that was written called the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. And it is very similar to what we call our Constitution today. So the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, what you need to know about them is they were basically the first written constitution in the Americas. The other day we talked about the Mayflower Compact. Today we're talking about the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. So, I barely got it in under the 15-minute mark. Get these notes put into your digital notebook, and you're good to go. Thanks. Bye.